welcome again to Around Town. Good afternoon, good morning. I don't know when this is going to be on when you watch it, but how are you? First announcement tonight, I want to let you know that Groton Fest, depending on the weather this weekend, we may have to cancel it again this weekend. If you go onto our website, www.grotonfest.com, at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, our decision will be up and you'll know by then. And if it is, if we cancel, we'll go to the spring. So it looks like we'll move it to April. Hopefully that won't happen, and we'll see you this weekend. Hi.
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 Hello.
How are you? Ellen Holbrook, Martha Campbell from the Council on Aging. Are you considered Council on Aging or the director of the Senior Center?
I am the director of the Council on Aging.
Oh, okay. All right.
COA director is what
Okay.
they call us.
But you're here to talk about something else.
Yes,
And
we
I'm
are.
going to let you
Yes, we are.
go ahead.
Okay. What we're here to talk about today is a program that the Council on Aging is going to put on behalf of the seniors of Groton.
Okay.
And it's a course sponsored and presented by the Alzheimer's Association on the practical art of caregiving to somebody with an Alzheimer's dementia.
That's got to be a big problem.
It is a huge problem. In the United States alone, there are approximately 5.4 million people with Alzheimer's disease.
As anybody that watches this show knows, this is my least favorite thing to talk about. But go ahead.
Well, I don't talk about it because it's my favorite. I talk about it because I know how important it is through personal experience.
Can we say that this has touched your life?
Oh, absolutely. Just about 7 years ago, my wife, who was 57 years old at the time, was diagnosed with what is called
57?
yes, diagnosed with what is called younger onset Alzheimer's
See
disease.
the hives that are starting right here?
This is something that an awful lot of people don't know about Alzheimer's. It is not solely a disease of the elderly. Roughly 10% of the Alzheimer's population, or in the US about 500,000 people, are diagnosed before age 65.
Wow.
But the reason that this course is important is that with that 5.4 million caregivers, there are people suffering from the disease, there are roughly 14 million caregivers.
Right.
And caregiving is possibly one of the most stressful jobs that a person
Sure.
can get
Yeah.
into.
Yeah.
And if you want to drive an automobile, you have to take instruction, you have to pass a test and demonstrate proficiency. If you want to wire homes for a living, you have to take courses and get a state license. To become a caregiver to somebody with dementia, all you have to do is know somebody with dementia.
Yeah.
So this is part of my personal experience. I was essentially the sole caregiver to my wife for 5.5 years, and I had no idea of what I was doing. I learned as I went. I made a lot of mistakes. The Alzheimer's Association is producing a 3-part series. We are going to be piloting it and putting it on here in Groton, and it is purely a practical course on what do you need to know.
Right.
It's not a touchy-feely, it's not an, oh, you're doing a wonderful thing. It's, oh, here's how you prevent your loved one from wandering. Here's how you turn off the stove when you have to go out. Practical, usable tips.
When
Because-
your wife was diagnosed, was she aware? I mean, was she not to the point where at that point where she didn't know?
She
what
was still essentially fully competent at the time
So how did
of
she react to
diagnosis.
this diagnosis?
She was terrified.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, her mother had had Alzheimer's
Oh,
and had
boy.
died of the disease, so she knew everything that was
Oh, boy.
going along. In most people, the diagnosis is determined and delivered years before they lose all of their competency. And Alzheimer's is also another one of those diseases. Once you do get your diagnosis with 20/20 hindsight, you go, you know, I knew there was something wrong,
Really?
kind of thing. She happens after a year and a half in a skilled nursing facility, about 7 years after her diagnosis, to be fairly far along in the later stages. She does not walk, she does not talk, she cannot swallow. But there are people who live for 20, 25 years after their diagnosis.
But is there any quality of life?
That again depends on the individual person.
See, I'm thinking Dr. Kevorkian should come in at that point. That's the way I would want it. I'm not being facetious.
No,
I mean, like, the whole
Yeah.
idea of it just makes me crazy.
I'm very sympathetic to that whole thing of being able to make choices.
Yeah.
But the point is that if you can make choices, you also have to be able to choose to live if there is some quality of life.
Right.
We say that the only rule about Alzheimer's is that there are no rules about Alzheimer's. I know people with the disease who have been diagnosed for a dozen to 15 years ago, and you might, after spending some time with them, think, gee, I wonder, but you wouldn't be sure.
Oh.
They're still doing remarkably
Okay.
well. And then there are people who are diagnosed and unfortunately succumb to the disease within 2 to 3 years.
Is it the long-term memory or the short-term memory they don't have?
C, both of the above.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Short-term first.
Yeah.
okay.
There-
Short-term first.
Short-term first. There is a whole body of scientific research about memory and how memory works. But in Alzheimer's patients, yes, they lose the ability to remember short-term things first, and up until the end, they may be able to tell you what they had for breakfast 25 years ago.
Yeah.
But what's happening today is they're realizing more and more, we know about the disease. There's no cure.
Yeah.
We have the diagnose, we have the symptoms, but what about the caregivers?
Right.
They're all ages. They're male, female, children. We're having this workshop, and a husband called up and he said, can I bring my 3 daughters? His wife is in her 50s,
Oh.
and the family will be caring for the mother and for the wife. But with this workshop coming to Groton, and with the good fortune of getting a $900 scholarship from the Friends of the Neshoba Valley Medical, we're able to provide a free dinner, transportation, and an activity director for the care partners who are going to be coming with
Oh,
the
that's
caregivers.
wonderful. Oh,
Yep,
that's great.
but we're inviting everybody. Everybody's coming. We can have 30 people because that's sort of like an easier amount of
Yeah.
people. More than that, the
You're
training
doing
won't
it at
work.
the senior center?
At the senior center. And then we have the care partners coming as well,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of volunteers that are willing to come and help us. So it's there. We know it's there.
Yeah.
Let's start talking about
Absolutely.
it. But instead of a sad way, we're trying to help.
Uh-huh.
We're trying to say, you're just as
Yeah.
important, and let's work with you right now.
How does the medical system fit into this? Does the insurance help with this? Are they acknowledging this disease?
That again depends on what particular kind of treatment, what stage of the disease. In my particular case, I know my wife saw a neurologist at Mass General every 3 months, and that was covered by insurance.
Why, though? What was the neurologist going to do for her?
There,
I say that because I just went to a neurologist. He said I was fine. But it wasn't about that, but I thought, now that you mentioned that word, I'm thinking, oh, my God.
It's ruling out.
yeah.
That's what it's doing, it's
As
ruling
Martha
out.
said, there is no cure for the disease at the moment. However, there are interventions,
Yeah.
and you asked about quality of life.
Yes.
There are medications that can maintain quality of life for a longer period of time. And it's not just something about, oh, here's your diagnosis and here's a bottle of pills. They have to be
What
staged.
does it do for you?
It slows the progress of the disease. Alzheimer's is a progressive disease that slowly takes away your cognitive ability.
So why can't they come up with more, better
That's
science?
the million-dollar question.
If they can
There's
slow it.
so much research going on right now,
Yeah.
but nobody knows.
Well, they
They're-
must
they're-
know something if they're being able to slow
They
it down.
can diagnose you, they know what the symptoms are, they can, physically,
Yeah.
they know what's going on, but there's no magic pill.
And there has been some remarkable progress made, and most medical people these days will tell you that they feel that within 10 to 20 years they will have made major,
Oh, good.
major
Oh,
inroads.
that's fantastic.
But right at the moment, unfortunately,
Yeah.
no.
Is it true that Reagan, before he left office, had this onset and that they were able to sort of protect him from the public knowing about it. I seem to remember hearing that.
Yeah, I don't know how much was actually known, but as I said to you earlier, it's one of those things where once you have your diagnosis, you can look back and go, yeah, I should have
Yeah,
seen it.
Yeah, yeah.
So there was no question that he was affected while he was still in office.
It's amazing, absolutely. So tell me about this workshop and when it is.
It's beginning on October 11th, and we have a series of 3, October, November, and December.
What day of the week is that?
Tuesday
Tuesday.
evening from 6 to 8.
Okay.
We're going to start serving, dinner at 5 o'clock, but it's a dinner, it'll be sandwiches and something that if you come late, then you can always, just take your food and go into the workshop. Now, we have 30 people, we have 2 seats left.
Oh,
So
gosh.
we're filled, but we're going to do it again in the spring. So we're going to take a waiting list.
So you come once, one workshop.
No, 3.
Oh, you come to three
Three,
workshops.
Come
three
to three.
workshops,
Okay.
1 person, 3 workshops. Yeah,
So if you only have 2 seats left
for the series.
for the series of 3, and then you'll
Yes,
continue it.
and then we'll do
So
a
you're
waiting list.
you're doing a waiting list for the following.
We're doing a
okay.
waiting list, right. So we're doing very well. And that filled up without even a lot of advertising, just
Oh, I'm
word
sure.
of mouth.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, the Alzheimer's Association put it on their list
Great.
and their web, and then that
That's
was the end of
fantastic.
it.
And
Yeah.
let me urge anybody listening to this to not hesitate, please, to please stay in touch with us, sign up for the second series or for one of those 2 remaining seats, because one of the most important things that a person caring for somebody with an Alzheimer's dementia needs to know is they are not alone and there is help.
Right.
Exactly.
If somebody called you and said, I'm desperate to come to this and you're full, would you let them in?
Actually, we refer them to the Alzheimer's Association, and they would take over from there.
Okay.
Mhm.
How many people would you say in the town of Groton are affected by this? Do you have any idea?
We have a number,
Yeah.
there's a number, and we work with our Triad organization, which is all the nursing services, we call them ASAPs, and they are the visiting nurses
Right.
that go into homes. There's more than you know,
Oh, I'm sure.
more than you know.
Yeah.
But then, it's not my privilege to
No, of
give
course not.
statistics or whatever, but, running the senior center, I see a lot of
Yeah.
things, I hear a lot of things, and there's people in need right now.
So can you spot people at the senior center that you think might be in trouble?
We have a saying. I used to lecture for the Alzheimer's Association. If you could remember that you're forgetting, you're okay.
Thank God. On that note,
And when we walk out into the kitchen and go, why am I here? You're normal. It's okay. It's okay.
that's great. One more time, phone number 448-1170.
70? Yep, you got it.
Is there a website?
Not yet. No,
Okay.
we're working on that.
But
Yeah.
Alzheimer's has a website.
They have a
certainly.
website with all kinds of information.
All kinds of information. The national website is www.alz.org.
Oh, good,
And
ALZ.
specific to Massachusetts, it's www.alznass.org.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And not only do I help Martha as a member of the Board of Directors of the Council on Aging, I'm also an active advocate and volunteer at the Alzheimer's Association in Watertown. And let me just make the pitch that they are a wonderful
Oh,
organization
that's fantastic.
and can provide
Congratulations
a
for
lot
doing
of
that.
help.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. It doesn't sound like that you need a lot of luck. I think this is going to be a fabulous thing for the town, and congratulations for doing
Well,
this.
thank you. And
Thank
thank
you.
you for letting us
Okay.
come on.
Did Alan dig this up? Are you the one that started this?
He
This
brought
up.
the,
How
he
sick
brought
is
the
that?
information. Yes, he did.
Good for you,
Very
Alan.
much so. Yeah.
Excellent.
He's an ambassador to Nikki Songus
Great.
as well for the Alzheimer's
That's great.
Association. So
We should have her on with you at some point.
that would be great.
That would be wonderful.
That would be
That'd be
great.
great.
Yeah.
Thanks
again.
again. Thanks for being
Nice
here.
to see
Alan,
you.
see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you soon.
Okay.
Just a second, we'll be bringing up Superintendent of Schools Joe Mastrocola and our Chairman of the School